In a war defined by escalation, the line between retaliation and preemption continues to blur. On a recent summer night, Ukraine sent a devastating message, one that came not with words, but with fire. Just hours after Russian drones targeted Ukrainian infrastructure, Ukrainian forces struck back with an explosive counterattack, leveling a Russian military base in occupied territory. Was it revenge? Was it deterrence? Or was it simply the new rhythm of a war spiraling into relentless tit-for-tat exchanges? As smoke still rises from the ruins, we unpack what really happened and what it means for the battlefield ahead. As twilight settled over Moscow Oblast on the evening of July 20th, few could have predicted that the skies above Russia's capital region would soon erupt in alarm. At least 21 drones reportedly streaked through the night sky, targeting various locations across the Moscow metropolitan area. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin acknowledged the scale of the attack, confirming that since 6 p.m. local time on July 19th, Ukrainian forces had launched multiple waves of unmanned aerial systems toward key urban and logistical targets. Amid the chaos, reports emerged from the satellite city of Zelenograd, located roughly 37 kilometers northwest of central Moscow. Social media posts captured scenes of vehicles ablaze near residential complexes, their orange flames licking up toward the darkened skyline. Although authorities were quick to contain the spread, no official information surfaced regarding casualties or the full extent of the damage. What was certain, however, was the disruption such an attack triggered. Russia's Federal Air Transport Agency, Rosaviatsia, immediately imposed temporary flight restrictions across all 4 major Moscow airports. Planes were rerouted to Pulkovo in St. Petersburg. These restrictions lasted until 4 a.m., when the all-clear was finally issued. The incident marked the 4th consecutive night of Ukrainian drone operations targeting Moscow. On the night prior, 13 drones had reportedly been launched toward the city, and the pattern was becoming unmistakably deliberate. Ukrainian forces appeared determined to deliver psychological, economic, and symbolic blows deep within Russian territory. The timing was hardly coincidental. In the days preceding the attacks, US President Donald Trump had reportedly offered the Kremlin a 50-day window to negotiate peace or face what he described as severe tariffs. Furthermore, it was rumored that in a phone conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump had asked whether Ukraine could realistically strike the Russian capital. Zelensky's alleged response was firm. Such an operation was entirely possible, provided the United States supplied the necessary weapons. This entire escalation was built on a single class of weapon, the drone. The weapons that enabled Ukraine to project power directly into Moscow's skies are not drawn from a single system or country. Rather, they are the product of an evolving war effort that blends domestic ingenuity with foreign technology. Chief among Ukraine's long-range strike capabilities are its growing fleet of kamikaze drones. The UJ-26 Bober, for example, is a Ukrainian-developed loitering munition with an effective range that exceeds 600 kilometers. Fitted with a high-explosive warhead and guided by a combination of GPS and inertial navigation, it is designed to glide silently over enemy territory before plunging into designated targets. In tandem, Ukraine has begun deploying the AN-196 Lyuty, a heavier and more advanced drone that rivals Russian Geran-2 in range, but surpasses it in accuracy. Built with composite materials and integrated with AI-guided targeting systems, the Lyuty can strike hardened military infrastructure as well as softer civilian targets, depending on mission objectives. These drones, often launched in large swarms, are capable of overwhelming even layered air defense systems by forcing radar operators and missile crews to react to multiple threats simultaneously. Many are launched in coordinated waves, including decoys, jammers, and actual strike payloads, creating confusion and saturation that few systems can withstand. Russia's response has been consistent with its existing doctrine. Utilizing a mix of S-400s, Pantsir S-1s, and Tor-M2 short-range systems, Russian forces have claimed numerous interceptions over the capital. In fact, on the weekend of July 20th, Moscow's Defense Command claimed to have downed over 45 drones across Moscow, Kaluga, and Bryansk regions. Despite these efforts, however, the psychological impact remains. Even if most drones are intercepted, the debris alone has been enough to ignite fires, shatter windows, and send shockwaves through the population. Each incident disrupts civil aviation, stokes fear, and projects a clear message: nowhere is beyond reach. Just as Moscow was recovering from the drone onslaught, Ukraine escalated the confrontation further by striking a Russian military installation in occupied territory. The base, believed to be a command and supply hub supporting Russian operations in the Zaporizhia region, was reduced to smoldering rubble in a matter of minutes. Witnesses described a barrage of explosions that rocked the surrounding landscape, suggesting that ammunition depots, fuel tanks, and other sensitive stockpiles were directly hit. The Ukrainian military has not disclosed which specific weapons were used in the operation, but military analysts suggest that long-range drones, likely variants of the Bober or Lyuty, were modified with delayed fuse or thermobaric warheads to ensure deep penetration and maximum structural damage. The timing of the strike, mere hours after the drone attacks on Moscow, suggests careful planning and deliberate retaliation. Rather than an act of vengeance alone, the strike appeared aimed at neutralizing Russian staging capabilities and sending a message of strategic parity. If Russia can hit Ukraine's cities, then Ukraine can and will strike Russia's logistical nerve centers. As drones pierce the night skies over Moscow and Kiev, their buzzing presence leaves more than physical damage behind. In a war that increasingly relies on asymmetrical weapons, psychological pressure has emerged as one of the most powerful tools on both sides. When a drone explodes over a residential neighborhood or crashes into a quiet industrial zone, it doesn't need to kill to leave its mark. The fear it sows, the disruption it causes, and the message it sends can ripple far beyond the crater it leaves behind. In Russia, repeated Ukrainian drone strikes have begun to challenge the illusion of domestic invulnerability. For decades, the Russian population had grown used to wars being fought at their country's fringes, in Chechnya, Georgia, Syria, and Ukraine. But now, air raid sirens in Moscow are becoming more frequent. Apartment dwellers in affluent suburbs find themselves taking cover from falling debris, and city airports, once thought untouchable, shut down almost weekly due to aerial threats. The result is a creeping realization: the war has come home. Polls conducted by independent organizations have shown a modest but growing discomfort with the Kremlin's war narrative. While many Russians still support the conflict or remain neutral, the specter of conflict on their doorstep is beginning to shift the psychological terrain. In Ukraine, the impact is both similar and distinct. Civilians have lived under the threat of Russian airstrikes for over 2 years, but they also draw a degree of empowerment from the drone counterstrikes deep inside Russian territory. Each successful hit on a base in Bryansk, a depot in Rostov, or a fire in Moscow serves as a form of psychological reciprocity, a reminder that Ukraine is not powerless and that justice, even symbolic, is within reach. Yet the fatigue is real. Ukrainian cities are battered by near-daily drone and missile attacks. Blackouts, damaged homes, and civilian deaths are common. Still, the morale remains remarkably high, fueled by defiance, community solidarity, and the belief that every drone launched from Ukrainian territory carries with it a piece of national resistance. For both sides, then, the war of machines has evolved into a war of nerves. How long the citizens of each nation can endure this pressure may shape not only battlefield tactics, but the future of the conflict itself. Behind every drone strike, there is more than just a launch command. There is a vast, invisible infrastructure of intelligence, surveillance, and electronic warfare guiding each munition to its target. In this war, the electromagnetic spectrum has become just as important as ground terrain. For Ukraine, real-time battlefield awareness is made possible through a blend of Western satellite reconnaissance, NATO-provided signals intelligence, and a growing network of domestic drone reconnaissance units. Before each strike into Russia, surveillance teams often scan for radar blind spots, monitor troop and vehicle movements, and analyze terrain data. Western countries, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom, have shared satellite feeds and electronic intercepts with Ukraine. giving Kyiv a decisive edge in locating and timing its drone launches. Much of the drone activity, especially deeper incursions into Russian territory, is likely supported by a mesh of forward observers, signal triangulation teams, and electronic warfare operators. These teams are tasked with finding weak spots in Russia's air defense coverage, identifying jamming fields, and planning flight paths that skirt around radar detection zones. Some drones are pre-programmed to fly nap-of-the-earth routes, using terrain-following logic to minimize exposure. Russia, too, relies heavily on electronic warfare to defend its skies. Systems like the Krasuka-4 and Zhitel are deployed across border regions to jam GPS signals, disrupt drone control channels, and mislead navigation systems. These tools have had limited but notable success, particularly against slower or older Ukrainian drones. Yet, Russia's reliance on centralized command structures and slower intelligence sharing between units has made its systems vulnerable to saturation and deception tactics. When dozens of drones are launched simultaneously, some real, others decoys, it becomes a challenge even for modern air defense systems to distinguish friend from foe. The war has increasingly become one of digital adaptation. Ukraine continues to tweak flight algorithms, improve drone stealth characteristics, and train new EW specialists. Russia, meanwhile, is attempting to close its radar gaps, deploy more layered defense nets, and enhance satellite coverage. Each side is now not only racing to build better drones, but also striving to master the invisible battlefield of code, signals, and frequency. While Ukraine's resilience is remarkable, its ability to strike back so effectively wouldn't be possible without Western support. From financial assistance and satellite intelligence to the hardware itself, Ukraine's entire high-tech warfare infrastructure rests on an international foundation. Let's start with equipment. Many of Ukraine's long-range drone attacks are enabled by Western microelectronics, even if the drone airframes are built domestically. The UK and Poland have both provided components for unmanned systems, while the United States and Germany deliver real-time satellite intel on troop concentrations and airbase activity. The contrast between Ukrainian and Russian drones is stark, revealing the wider asymmetry in how each side wages modern warfare. Russia continues to rely heavily on Geran-2 kamikaze drones, which are simple, mass-produced, and effective in swarming tactics. They fly slowly and generate considerable noise, making them easier to detect, but their affordability allows Russia to launch them in overwhelming numbers. Ukraine, by contrast, focuses on precision, adaptability, and technical superiority. Rather than mirror Russia's volume-based doctrine, Ukraine emphasizes range and accuracy. Ukrainian drones typically carry heavier warheads and integrate more sophisticated navigation systems, enabling surgical strikes on specific facilities such as radar stations, fuel depots, and power substations. Moreover, Ukraine's use of AI-driven flight paths and encrypted communication links reduces vulnerability to electronic warfare. Russian drones, while more numerous, often fall victim to jamming or interception before reaching high-value targets. Beyond drones, Western countries also supply mobile air defense systems to defend Ukrainian skies from Russian retaliation. Systems like Patriot, NASAMS, Iris-T, and Gepard are crucial in intercepting the Shahed drones Russia launches almost nightly. Without these, Ukraine's cities would lie in ruin. Moreover, tactical communication systems, often overlooked, have revolutionized Ukraine's ability to coordinate joint strikes. Secure battlefield networks provided by countries like France and the US now allow drone operators, artillery crews, and reconnaissance units to share data in real time. This connectivity turns scattered units into a coherent strike force. Training is another silent contribution. Ukrainian drone operators, EW specialists, and even mechanics are now trained across NATO countries, from the UK to Estonia. Many return home to lead local drone battalions or mentor fresh recruits. Perhaps most crucially, sustained financial aid allows Ukraine to mass-produce its drones. The EU's recent pledge of €500 million for drone manufacturing means Ukraine won't just maintain its drone campaign, it will escalate it. So while the drone strikes may carry a Ukrainian flag, they're very much a Western-enabled operation, backed by shared technology, joint doctrine, and an international belief that Russia's aggression must be stopped, not just repelled. The danger is not just in the violence itself, but in the precedent it sets. Each strike, each counterstrike, inches both sides closer to a tipping point. Miscalculation, or a strike that causes mass civilian casualties on either side, could rapidly escalate the conflict beyond its current scope. In the broader political context, peace remains elusive. Despite international calls for de-escalation, including pressure from Trump's administration to force negotiations within a set deadline, both sides appear more committed than ever to military leverage. The logic of deterrence now rules the battlefield. Every strike is a warning, and every silence a calculation. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.